Do you know how many new songs are released every day on Spotify? Over 100,000 uploads. So, how do we make sense of that flood of music? And how do platforms turn it into business, especially with short form videos? And how do your favorite artists make money from it? This episode is not just asking, oh, can AI make a good song? It's about a deeper question. If platforms decide what you discover, then who's really in control of your taste? Today, our guests come from two completely different music worlds. Hazel Savage, now CEO of SYNTHO and founder of Museo, with past roles in Shazam, Pandora, and Universal Music. And Zhiwei, a founder from China's content industry working across AI-generated music, global distribution, and cross-border platforms. We navigated something really interesting. For founders, have we overestimated the demand for AI-generated music? Why do Chinese music platforms earn through tipping and e-commerce, while Western ones rely on ads and streams? For artists, AI isn't replacing artists, but it's changing how music is made. So how can we use it without losing your voice? Now, if you think music tech is too niche to matter, think it again. The tension between creativity, automation, and business is not unique in this industry. It's just louder in here. We are unpolished players in business. We are not only talk about what's possible, but how we take part in building what comes next.
Today, I think we're going to talk a lot, but I want to start with a very simple but maybe difficult question. If a 12-year-old kid just asks you, what is music tech? Could you explain it in like one sentence? Who gonna go first?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I could that. I would say it's anything related to the music industry where modern technology also has an impact. So I feel like in the past people would have called it digital as well. It doesn't have to be deep tech. Of course, you do have technologies like AI and blockchain and Web3, but essentially anything music related that's now music streaming or that's in an app or that's, collecting emails from an artist database, all of that is music tech. And most of us live our lives now with technology, so anything related to music that's also crosses over into tech, which is like nearly every single thing. So that would be how I would describe it.
Okay. What would you say, Zhiwei?
Yeah, I think music takes it's very self-explanatory, I guess. It's anything that combines technology with music, and it's not just like AIs, and as Hazel already said, it's also something related to distribution of music and live streaming. Yeah.
And I feel like what is most interesting thing is before I ask you when I prepare for our episode, I asked some of my friends who are not working in music or tech industry. And I asked some friends from China or from UK, and the answer is very different. I asked them to give me some keywords about what are they thinking about music tech. Let me find it. Yes, the British friends said metadata, recommendation, and distribution. And our Chinese friends said AI generated music and electronic production and virtual idols. That's something in China and in Japan, in Korea. So, because these answers are pretty different, but I think both of them are right. But I would ask you, like, are we using one term or two totally different ecosystems? Or actually, what actually behind those differences, do you think?
Yeah, for me, I would say to me the difference would be it depends on whether you're asking somebody I guess the way I would refer to it is B2B or B2C. So, it felt like a lot of those answers were very good. My company Museo, we previously we were a metadata company essentially. So if you're business to business, if you're a company selling to other music companies, then you do use these sort of terms like, metadata, and you'll look at generative AI and stuff like this. If you are the majority of the population, which is a music fan who might their only experience of MusicTech might be their Spotify subscription, then those people, like I'm thinking about my parents and other people, the waitress in the cafe today, they would probably only think of MusicTech in the very broadest terms, and that's the business to customer term, which is they've only heard of the companies like Apple Music and Amazon Music and Spotify. So I think again it depends on. I would see the split down business lines. Are they a little bit more invested in the industry side, or are they just a pure consumer? And that tends to be where the difference in knowledge tends to be, from my perspective.
Yeah. Zhiwei, do you have some ideas for that?
Yeah, I think Hazel's response quite solid, and so I have like a different point of view from my side. So I think why like the Chinese answer is quite different from the British answer is that I presume this Chinese audience is really taking care of the word tech. So like in Chinese culture, tech usually is quite related to deep tech, which you can think of like those big terms like AI, like even like a virtual idol sort of stuff. And thing like in Western concept, like now for like tech is quite intervene like with other thing. I would say like social stuffs, and so it's more related to like how you deal with your daily life. It's not about someone like some group building something behind like computers. Yeah, I think that's my understanding. My understanding. So like there's like difference between the culture.
And I think that's also related to how, let's say, ordinary people approached to this music tech, let's say. And I know it would be a very general question, but I'm really wondering what is like the current status of the music tech in China or in UK? Like, what's the development stage of that?
Shall I answer this first, Hazel?
Yeah, please.
So yeah, thanks. I think I would say it's quite different, first of all. And so I have used both like Spotify, Apple Music. I'm an Apple Music user, and also like Chinese music platform, like streaming platform, like Tencent Music, and also 网易 Cloud Music, I think.
Yeah.
This is the name, and the music streaming like platform in Western market. It's more related to the term music streaming. So it's basically you try to listen to your favorite music in the platform, like in the app. So it's very much one single use. And for apps in China, there's like a culture in China that they always trying to build like a mega app. So they try to like fit everything into one app, like WeChat and sort of stuff. So you have like many functions in one single app. For example, I think in Tencent Music you can have like live streaming, and I think you can also watch like MVs, like music videos. And also, so actually, like in 2024, so just last year, 70% of the revenue generated is from non-music streaming services for music streaming apps in China. So this is quite like a large portion, and think there's a lot like generated by advertisement also, I think. So subscription is a very low weight in music streaming industry in China.
So yes, and I think that's pretty different with like Spotify, with the Western world app. I can add one more detail for our some Chinese audience, because some of them never used Spotify. And if I tell you that in Spotify you cannot even comment on the songs, you would be really shocked, because there is a CEO of the Tencent music app. He said the social function is the most important function in this app. So I was like, oh, it's so different. But what's your opinion for this, Hazel? And did you have any like cultural shock when you come to, because you work for in Singapore for some lots. So is there anything shock for you?
No, but you're right, and they are really different. And I do remember, I think the Chinese music streaming apps are probably much better at monetizing their audience. The ability to like tip artists, the ability, as you say, they've got videos and everything included. I would say it's funny because a lot of those functions exist maybe somewhere. So, for example, I love the fact she said it would be really shocking to not be able to comment on a track. And so, for whatever reason, on SoundCloud, you can comment on a track, but none of the other streaming services have taken this up. So you can't do it on Apple or Spotify. But then I would say
Yeah.
in terms of business model, I was thinking about this as we were talking. Something is like Amazon Music. And I would say that because Amazon Music has really gone down the kind of the ecosystem route, which is you get the TV streaming, you get the free delivery with Prime, and you get the Amazon Music like all bundled into one subscription. So I feel like when it comes to like the mega app approach, Amazon is probably the closest thing we have, but it doesn't have those social elements or the ability to kind of sort of pay more than the standard subscription, right? They all have a cap on them. So I would say in MusicTech as well, the thing that I'm seeing a lot of in the UK is there's a lot of people trying to pitch the idea of like a whole new streaming service. So there's a lot of startups working on what it would look like to like rebuild a whole service, and most of them are very focused around how would we change the payment model for artists. And I think that's it, like how do you get the money from the fans to the artist is a really, really important journey. That the apps all have the standard payout rates, it's based on like pro rata of streams. So I think that's where the UK is trying to innovate. Whether we will actually get there, whether we will see some new services, I'm a little bit skeptical, but yeah, I think that's a really good summary of the differences as well.
Why are you a little bit skeptical?
I'm a little bit skeptical because the companies that I'm seeing attempting this at the minute aren't really, I think you would need tens of millions of dollars to do this, right? I feel like the reason why Amazon Music is successful as a bundled part of the service is because Amazon was already a multi-billion-dollar company. And so I feel like to be well positioned to launch something with a significantly different payment model, I don't really think that's something you can bootstrap. Like I don't think I could just create it in this room right now and it would work. I think the amount of money you would need to fund it would be significant. And I don't see anyone who's got that level of partnership yet. So I'm a little bit skeptical. And also I think that most of the financial models I see rely on that extra revenue coming in with a much higher subscription.
Yes.
And I think as well, I think it would be difficult to say to customers, okay, will you pay $12.99 a month for Spotify, now pay $29 a month for the same thing. Like I think that's where that model will struggle. I don't think British people will want to pay double for the same thing. And I think that's where, maybe there's something to learn from the Chinese music apps where, the gamification, the tipping, the commenting, the upsell purchases. I think there are smarter ways to increase revenue than just doubling the price of a subscription, because I think, people have gotten used to paying $12.99 a month. I think unless there's a really compelling reason to increase that, I don't think people will just increase it arbitrarily. So we will see. We will see.
And for some, a lot of Chinese app, it's still free. And but it's not like Spotify. If you want to free, you're gonna listen to the advertisement. It's absolutely free. But there is one way they increase their revenue is they tell you if you pay this kind of membership, we're gonna give you the high quality, the material music. But I would say for a lot of people, they don't give a I got they just want to when they run.
Yeah,
That's all. So that's all.
I
Yeah,
think because like the Chinese population, like they're sorry, yeah, yeah,
no, that was gonna be my
yeah.
question. I was gonna say, I'm curious, is high fidelity audio popular in China?
This is, I don't think so. So I think because like the Chinese population, they don't have like habits for subscription. So so this is what I heard like from a lot of like investors when they trying to value a like a business model of subscription in China. They would say like the Chinese population, they like freemium model. They don't like model with subscription. So I think that's why those mega companies like Tencent, they want to develop like other ways to monetize other than subscription. Like it's like they are the only companies they can afford those partnership with big labels. Like you need tons of money to buy those to buy licensing from those big labels like Sony and Universal. It's not like a startups thing. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're right as well. And when it comes to like high quality audio, I think there's a very small percentage of the UK population where they really care and they will pay more money to have that high quality audio. But my general take is, and if I think about where I listen to the majority of my music, which is either I'll just press play on my laptop and I'm not connected to any kind of fancy speakers, or I sync my Wi-Fi Bluetooth to my car and I will play through one of the streaming services. And again, like most of us are probably not using speakers or headphones that are good enough to be able to really capture any difference in the audio. So I think there is, as I say, a small percentage of people who really care about that level of quality with audio. But I would say the majority, it's not a hugely compelling upsell.
And I also want to raise another like concept. I'm not sure if it's fact based on my research and my understanding. So basically, there are like different categories about the tools that's related to music tech. One is about production tools, that some tools can help you to create the music, like the AI composition or voice synthesis or automated mixing. And this is something called production tools. But there is another thing like can help you make money from the music, involves various strategies that enable artists to generate revenue from their music online, such as streaming services, licensing, and funding platform, like we talked before. So it also includes some innovative approaches like the NFTs and the blockchain-based music distribution. And I'm not sure it's right for the people work in music tech industry just categories into these two, or you don't use that two words.
Yeah, I mean, I can pick that up. I would say, I always, when I was building my company Museo, I would always kind of split the AI conversation into there's like assistive AI and then there's generative AI. And, because people just used to tend to use the word AI very generically. But I feel like when it comes to assistive AI, whether that's like you say, AI mastering, AI mixing, source separation technology, I don't think these tools are particularly controversial. It's just using AI to be able to complete a function within the process of music creation. They generally, yeah, they tend to not be, even, most playlisting algorithms may have elements of AI integrated into them. So they're not super controversial. But the generative AI, which is obviously creating new works that are derivative of other works, this tends to be very controversial in the UK at the minute, because there was no sort of licensing for that data up front. But yeah, I'd love to hear, how does China approach generative AI?
Yeah, Zhiwei, please share us some of your opinions and your observations.
Yeah, sure. So I think based on my experience, most of projects or like startup founders I met or like I mentored, they're quite interested in Gen AI, like in Gen music. And so I'm not sure if it's the regulation between different countries is that like perhaps perhaps like China has more sort of like soft left on Gen AI. So so I think there's a regulation that you have to put on a label if this music is generated by AI. And yeah,
Mm,
so
Okay.
but I think yeah, but I'm not sure like what's the drawing line between those. So I think they're trying to develop like different kinds of Gen AI tools. I met a few like founders already because like most Gen music AI platform I know they're more like a tool built by those mega companies like Tencent and
mm,
Alibaba or like ByteDance trying to help their own company to gain revenue and to keep drawing attentions from those investors in stock market saying, well, we're keeping up the trends. It's not like something that's specifically designed for producers. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they have their own classifieds or like AI music distribution algorithm. They haven't publicized their like algorithms saying like, well, this AI algorithm help us to draw more attention to our own artists or sort of stuff. So I think basically, I think more founders are trying to build AI tools or like a SaaS platform that designed specifically for music producers, not something trying to you're trying to add on for your company. Yeah.
mm. I want to add a little detail because our Hazel also mentioned it once. You just said you're pretty skeptical for the generative AI in music, especially when it's like fully machine generated, not a cooperation from the artist. And you said the demand isn't there that much, and you said but maybe let's see. Maybe after 10 years, you're right, or you're losing some opportunities, didn't you, Beth? But I remember you said it in 2023. I watched an interview. So now, after 2 years, you still think so, or you got a little bit changes or any details between that?
No, I think I would go back to my original 2022 quote, which is, I'm still not sure the demand for generative AI is there. It's so mired in legal controversies at the minute, focused around whether the data has been legally acquired and whether a fair use case applies to audio for AI training generative AIs. And until we really know the outcome for that, it's impossible to say whether
Mm,
the general public will adopt the use of this technology en masse. I'm still a little bit skeptical that it's more legally controversial than it is an exciting technology. So we'll see how the adoption goes. But yeah, I'm still skeptical.
And I'm wondering, because now you are also an investor, so definitely there are some people pitch their ideas based on that to you, and maybe you're gonna ask them questions like this. What's their response? How they try to convince you? Maybe they failed.
I don't I guess there's just some people that just really believe in it, but they tend to be basing that belief more around like a hunch rather than any hard data, because usually most of the companies that pitch me are so early, they don't actually have any traction or revenue to be able to prove what they're saying is true. So, and then my take to them is just, the two biggest companies in the generative AI space, which are Suno and Udio, have raised between them hundreds of millions of dollars. And so my approach would be, now is a terrible time to build a generative AI company. I would let them use their money to create the marketplace, to basically prove in a court of law whether it's legal or not. They've raised the money, let them do that. I would say anyone else can wait until we definitively know the position of the courts before trying to launch anything new, unless they want to raise 100 mil just to enter into the court cases as well. But that would be in my opinion, a terrible business idea. So yeah, it's evolving as we speak, but it's very interesting.
Okay, Zhiwei, I also want to ask you this small point. Like, is there anyone talk to you about they want to do more about the generative AI in maybe music tech or other, you know, related to music? Because related to tech is definitely related to other kinds of music.
I think people are still quite passionate about Gen AI. I think over the world, but to be honest, so for me, if say I'm the fundraiser, I would be quite skeptical about like doing a Gen AI. And so I have like a friend trying to mix music like soundtracks with video generation. So you usually have like music coming out and like they trying to combine those together. And so for myself, I'm not sure about Gen AI music in this year or perhaps in next year. I think it's quite early to say. It's not like ChatGPT that you can see like the change in people's daily life so early. I think it's still quite experimental for Gen AI music in this stage. But people are trying to represent like music is still like a combination of numbers. I think there are some audience for this talk saying, oh, well, music is basically a bunch like a mixture of numbers. It's just you shift like the tones and majors and now it's different. But I think in this age, the Gen AI is still trying to mimic those old music. They're still just trying to mix and match. It's not like they're actually generating. So that's my point of view. Yeah.
I got it. I got it. That's really interesting because I think several of my friends who work in the game and entertainment industries, they are really eager to use generative AI music for their games or their short videos, the TV series, and I asked them a pretty harsh question like, "But don't you think this kind of music are pretty mediocre?" And they was like, "Sometimes we pay people money more than this to have the same, maybe worse mediocre music. So why don't I use it?" I was like, okay, fine, fine. So I want to go to another question related to I think it's a very interesting and going to be very popular, like tech. So in the age of the TikTok and the viral moments, both artists and platforms are thinking like how music is made, not just like what we hear, but which part we can hear first. So I think in Museo segment select API can now pinpoint which 30 seconds of the song can have the highest viral potential on platforms such as TikTok. But Hazel, could you tell us more about this technology and how its development now and how it's adopted by this platform or the users or everything?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key elements about something like Museo Segment Select, which, like you say, can choose the best 30 seconds of a song and actually give you 3 options of the 30 seconds that you might want to try and then select, is a lot of it is driven from 2 things. It's driven by new platforms such as TikTok that come around, and now you have the ability to, before the kind of short form video content became so popular, there was no real need to find the best 30 seconds of any song. Like most songs, people would just start at the beginning and finish at the end. So the platforms have really driven that change. And then the second thing kind of driving that change is the volume. So I remember back in 2018, there was a press release from Spotify that said they had 30,000 songs a day uploaded to Spotify. And I was thinking, that's a lot of music. But then I think, just in last year, 2024, I think they put out the same press release that said it's 100,000 songs. So, from 2018 to 2024, it's gone from 30,000 to 100,000. I think it's safe to assume that, especially with generative AI, that number is just going to keep increasing massively. So the ability to then find the 30 seconds when you're processing a huge amount of data, and in this case, it's music, but it's still data that you're processing. And then also the platforms that come around that inspire this change. So those are kind of the 2 things that really drive technologies like this forward. And I think as we see more short videos becoming even more popular, you see audio memes, seeing a lot of artists getting record deals off the back of a 30-second clip that's gone viral. So the whole industry has changed, and Museo was simply a technology that responded to that change. Now there is more songs, now there are more places to put these songs. How can technology help us with this? So that's always my favorite kind of use case for technology as well, like seeing how the world has changed and then figuring out how to build cool things that make it easier.
But I still have a little bit confused in this part about the 30 seconds. Like how the machine, how the AI gonna identify which is the best part for seconds? It's like for the vocals or the beat drop or some like the melodies and which are have the evidence to show, okay, that's have like, let's say 1 million of song similar like this beat and it got virus. I'm still a little bit confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some of it's a secret, but broadly speaking, what I can say is that with the Museo AI, essentially what we're doing is we're teaching a machine to be able to identify a pattern in the same way that a human would. And so really the way we do that is we show it examples. So, as a really simple example, when we wanted the Museo AI to be able to tell the difference between a pop song and a rock song, if you give it 2,000 pop songs and you give it 2,000 rock songs, it will then, and you say, this is what pop looks like, this is what rock looks like. It looks for the features within those songs, the dynamics, the vocal, it looks for all it's pattern recognition, essentially. It looks for those patterns. And then the next time you show it something, that's say a rock song, it's going to identify that the patterns are closer to the rock song data set, and so it's going to give you a percentage confidence score that, okay, I've looked at the features, I'm like 90% sure this is a rock song as well. And so it's similar with the 30 seconds. Yes, it's related to dynamics, it's related to, we also know for a fact that sections of songs with vocals on are generally more compelling than sections without, right? So there are all these little factors that come into play that goes, okay, we also know, even if you look at a waveform, you can see where it might have like a really slow intro and then it's something really exciting is happening. Okay, this is dynamics. This is also something we want to look at. So it's a combination of all those things that same you would do with your human ears. You're listening for when the singing comes in. You're listening for when all the instruments come in. You're listening for interesting changes in the melody, a chorus which tends to be repeatable, right? So it comes several times, so therefore it's important and it's exciting, hopefully. So we teach AI to look for all of these things and then make a database educated guess on this is likely to be a section that would resonate with people. So it's a combination of all of those factors, but in the same way, it's really just trying to mimic what a human would do when it would listen to a song, which parts would find exciting.
But can it be used in another way? I mean, if I am a musician, I want to be your friend and dig some secrets from you, and I'll change my way when I write a song because I want to be popular in this kind of platforms. So will it happen right now for some like A&R companies or the department? They're trying to use this technology into this approach.
Yeah, sometimes we did some early experiments in this space, and we did one really cool project where we had an intern in Singapore, a guy called Sean, and what we did was we essentially analyzed all of the TikTok charts, and we looked up like what are the most common genres, what are the most common instruments, what are the most common vocal styles, and then we basically, once we analyzed all of the charts, we then asked Sean to write a piece of music that also fit this description.
Yes.
And he wrote a 30-second piece of music that also fit the same description as what was trending. And it was really funny. It got picked up in the press in the UK that it was robots that had written the music, and I was like, no, it was a real human being that wrote the music, but we used data to analyze what was happening and then reverse engineer it into a song. But it was always more in the, that again hasn't really hit any kind of level of mass adoption. That was more something we tried as like a fun experiment. So yeah, theoretically, could record labels use this technology? Yes, but do they? Not really, to be honest. They just they would still rather do it the old-fashioned way, the human way.
It's really good because it really reminds me another thing that Hazel said before, like AI should do something like people don't want to do, but don't take the things that people love to do. And but based on this platform thing, I also have another question, which is a little bit critical. I would say, the rise of the digital and AI tools has made it easier than ever to make and release music, even it's just normal. But so with this so much music out there today, it's also harder to create that one like shared culture shaping hit. Like for example, the Beatles. Like I feel like in recent era, a lot of people have this statement. It's hard for us to have this cultural shipping hit. It's just popular for 1 month or 2 months. So do you think we're heading towards a world where music becomes too, let's say, fragmented to create the collective memory like Beatles, that worldwide big thing? Do you agree with this kind of statement or critical thing?
I think yes to an extent, and I also it did make me think of, and this is I think I'm a little bit older than both of you, but it used to be the same with TV as well. So growing up, I grew up in the era when there were 4 TV channels. That was it. No Netflix, no streaming, no watch again, no watch later, nothing. So you had to be in front of your TV at a specific time to see something. And then the next day at school, everyone would discuss the same one show that everyone had watched, right? And that reality doesn't exist now for TV either. Someone can be watching an absolutely phenomenal, 9-episode show on Netflix, and I've literally never heard of it. And even I've been so late to some of these TV shows, like Slow Horses, which in the UK is on Apple TV only, and I didn't have Apple TV, so I hadn't seen it. So by the time it came out, they were on season 4, and I'd just never heard of it. And it's Gary Oldman, who's like a Hollywood A-lister. So it's so easy to miss things because there's so much content, and it's so fragmented. It's like, okay, so now I have an Apple TV subscription. I also have Netflix. I also have BBC iPlayer. But there are streaming services that are only available in the US. When I lived in Singapore, I had HBO Max. There's no HBO Max in the UK, so I don't have that anymore. So if there's a show that's only going to come out on HBO Max, I probably can't watch it for a while until one of the UK services syndicates it. So it is more fragmented, and I think music copies that as well, which is, yes, most of the platforms have 90 million songs, which is most of the music, but within that, people are going to create their own subcultures because they can find what they want. Again, growing up, if I wanted to listen to music, you could listen to the radio or you could purchase the CD. Now that required them actually selling the CD, right? So I remember once I was like, 20 years ago, I really, really liked this band, but they just weren't selling. They didn't sell the CD in the UK, and there was no online shopping. There was, so that's it. Can't get hold of it. Doesn't exist, right? So now I could listen to every single song from that exact album with a couple of clicks on my laptop. I feel like in some ways it's become more accessible because you can listen to anything, but then naturally within that, people are going to, the same with TV, gravitate towards the things that they like the most. They don't have to only watch what's on the 4 channels or only listen to what's on the radio. So it's good and it's bad. There is less of a sort of a cultural consciousness. I sometimes hear songs and I think I have absolutely no idea who that is. If you were to ask me who is number 1 in the UK chart right now, I don't know. And if you told me there's a chance that I might never have heard of that person, this could be an age thing as well. This could be because I'm a little bit older, but it also is just, that there are artists that hit number 1 in the UK that are just not as famous as they would have been 20 years ago because everybody knew the same artist. So it's definitely frightening, but I don't always necessarily think it's a bad thing because you can just find your niche and you can find more of what you want specifically.
So, and actually that's a big beneficial for especially the independent artists right now, because if like 20 years ago you don't have a company, you can't have a CD, you can't have your fans. Yes.
Yeah.
And I also want to go back to another thing about your guys the new career venture and the investment thing. So the first today, I want to ask Hazel a question. Like now you're joined a CEO of SYNTHO. Sorry, I pronounced it. I'm not sure it's accurate. The SYNTHO, and I really wondering the reason, like why. Because yes, SYNTHO, I through all the website and I want to attend it, but I also want to ask like what makes you feel like yes, that is the next challenge I want, because I feel like you're that kind of person. I always want to experience new challenge and brings a new impact to the music tech world.
Yeah, so I joined SYNTHO in February this year, and I was excited by a few things. Like, the platform I just think has been running for a few years and is very good at what it does. Videos to teach other house music producers how to learn Ableton, how to produce house music, and that the education space is very exciting because it is something that people will still invest in. People, as in the customers, invest in themselves to say, yes, I will pay $400 a year to be able to be part of the best community. Yes. And so, it's something people are willing to invest in themselves, but also, myself and some other investors are kind of working along the lines that AI is so popular that there will also be somewhat of a small backlash in terms of you can literally go to ChatGPT and ask it anything and tell you anything, right? With a few caveats that it might not always be accurate. You know, I think that we'll start as human beings to value even more highly personalized experiences and connections. So, you know, yes, for free, ChatGPT will tell you how to do something, but I'd rather pay
Yes.
somebody who's already been successful or an expert. You know, you could, I guess, why like you could go to ChatGPT and ask, how do I raise $1 million for my music tech company? I don't know what ChatGPT will say. It might say some stuff that's it might say some stuff that's not helpful, but I think there's a reason why I still get inundated with requests for that exact same information, because as I'm a human being that's already done this thing, so people want to ask me how to do it. So I think that we're seeing a bit of a backlash, and we'll see that more in new tech companies that come out, which is how do we offer something highly personalized and authentic in a time when AI has made it very, very difficult to get that authenticity and that unique perspective. So that's kind of why I joined SYNTHO.
Oh, and I also like the idea of ending some point and looking back in future. So I want to ask a question to the future, because I think in 2023, Hazel, you once said like source separation, maybe the next frontier in music tech. And I want to ask, after these 2 years, you still think so? Or do you have any new ideas for the forecasting for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I full disclosure, I'm an investor in a source separation technology called AudioShake. So obviously I still believe that it will be successful, and it is turning out to be quite successful, which is good because it works really well in film as well. You know, so for example, you know, think about, you know, any film that's, you know, filmed in English, you could basically take the voices off the film and then replace them with Chinese voices, like you know, Chinese language. So you know, it's but you could exactly, you could use local voice actors, but you can still keep all the other sound, like the, you know, the noises of, you know, somebody typing or somebody walking or whatever it is. So you don't have to redo the entire thing. You just redo the voices. So, you know, there's huge potential for, and you could do that in 100 different languages, right? That's the opportunity of the scale. And again, it's back to that personalization, right? Which is makes everything so much more exciting. So I think yeah, I'm still positive about that as a technology. I think I am also really positive generally about any of these technologies that make things more personalized, more authentic, and more accessible. So, you know, if I come across a technology in this space, I think that sounds interesting. So yeah, I haven't really changed my thesis too much at the minute.
Oh, well, I like it. I like it. I really feel excited for that, because my previous work, you know, that related to the audio dramas and the films about the entertainment, especially for the voice acting. I'm sure it's gonna be very successful. God. And I also love the way you talk about, as an investor, what's the factors you're really looking forward to. You really emphasize that. So I want to ask, because sometimes AI sounds like a buzzword about some investment meetings. Everybody gonna say, okay, I'm related to this. And maybe it's also a fancy word to say like personalization or empowerment. I feel like a lot of startups founders are talking about that. But as investors, because you guys both work in this area, how do you make sure it's an authentic thing, it's a real business thing, or just a buzzword, just a fancy way? How do you do that?
Yeah, Zhiwei, you go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I think as I said before, like in year 2025, it's not the year that you can just create something. randomly with AI and want to get like money from English. That's unrealistic, first of all, and mm, and I think you are basically out of time already. It's it's now more about the time that you're trying to create something new, because I think every day there's like a three or like a five new so-called like AI unicorns out from Y Combinators, and so you're trying to create something new and something that can actually help people to achieve their objects and help them to promote their efficiencies. And you have to show like the user case, and you have to show your business model, and then you have to show that you really understand the like the area you are working on. It's not something that you have in your mind and you said, okay, I'm going to build something related to AI in music industry. No, you have to be familiar with the industry yourself. Then you have an idea that, oh, AI can actually help me to streamline some workflow, or AI can actually help me to create something new. Yeah, and all founders I know, like in AI tech, in AI music tech, they have somehow some experiences in music industry before. So if you like, if you try to create something you are not familiar with, you just Google and said, okay, I have this idea. I'm going to hack them. Probably you want to try to switch something you're more familiar with, that you know, like what's the target, what's the market. So yeah,
I
that's
like
that's my
I
little
like it.
understanding.
That you should identify what's the worst thing you observed and you try to tackle with it. And maybe by using AI or other things. Okay, how about you, Hazel?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of that. It's quite often if I get sent a pitch deck, it will claim to be using AI, but sometimes really maybe they're just using, some sort of, they're using Copilot for coding, or they're using an off-the-shelf search plugin that uses AI itself. And so unless they're really building proprietary models and they're building the AI in-house, it's not that exciting to say that you're using AI. In fact, I would expect most companies to be using it to an extent. So it's not that exciting. And then what I really dislike is if a company pitches me something and it's like, oh, it's a ticketing platform for music, and I say, okay, cool, but thank you, but I'm not really interested. I mainly invest in AI companies. And they say, oh no, we are using AI. And I go, if it's not really part of your pitch, it's not really an AI company. It's just, there's a difference between being an AI company that's building proprietary models and training actual neural networks or large language models, and someone who's using one of the many available AI technologies to augment the business. And there is nothing wrong with either way, but it's like, don't try and sell me on it being a deep tech company if it's not, because then you lose trust for the founder. They're just kind of trying to say anything to get you to be interested, and that's a surefire way to make nobody interested. You're always going to be in a better position if you are approaching the problem first.
To identify the problems is very, very important at this stage. And okay. And this question, I think it would be interesting. Let's go back to that platform again. And let's say if tomorrow every music platform just disappeared, and you have to rebuild one from scratch, what's one feature or one philosophy or something you will not bring it back?
I would, if it was me, I would. Well, firstly, I would say I would never do this. I would let somebody else do this, because the majority of the responsibility of the music streaming services is negotiating music licensing. And so, lawyers on both sides get paid a lot of money. They're probably the ones that benefit the most from this whole process. And I wouldn't really have I wouldn't really have any interest in working at a company that has very, very detailed licensing negotiations. I can't think of anything worse, to be honest. So I wouldn't do this job. But if for whatever reason I had to do this job, I would probably be number one looking to change the payment system, not necessarily from the perspective of the startups I hear that are wanting to just raise all the prices. Not that I disagree with that either. Maybe music is undervalued, but more from the perspective of the way it works at a lot of the services is this pro rata model. So, I might spend $12.99 a month and only listen to AC/DC. But AC/DC get my $12.99. My $12.99 goes into the pot, and then it turns out half of all the music listened is, say, Taylor Swift, so she gets half of my money, even though I never listened to any of her music, right? In this example. So I think the pro rata model, I don't think it's fair to the majority of the artists. I would love to see a payment model that's based on I give you my money and I listen to these things. I therefore want my money to go to those artists. I think that would be the one thing that I would change.
I love it. I love it. How about you, Zhiwei?
Yeah, I think so I'll say something on parts of the Chinese view, I guess. And so I think the thing I wouldn't want to bring back is the fragmentation of the licensing. I think Hazel's already explained something before. So in China, so this is quite a serious problem. So for example, if you want to listen to AC/DC music, you have to change to another subscription, and this one's there and this one's there, and it's very hard. It's very hard to like audiences. You have to you have to pay double in a month, or like even triple to listening all of your favorite musics. And I think this is the problem of like exclusion. It's all about like the deal. If we pay you for like exclusive contract, and you can only like upload your music to our platform. This is quite nonsense for me. And I think I wouldn't definitely bring this back. And Slow Horse is a very good TV show, by the way. So I would love to see this on other channels, not just Apple.
That's good. So one more last question, and maybe we can wrap everything together. Like, could you like use one sentence to complete like in 2030, like 5 years later, the music tech will be what, and it's based on your imagination, expectation, and I know it's not only for imagination and expectation and your effort. You're part of that. So what's a sentence?
In 2030, music tech will be not that different. I genuinely don't think it will be. I think we'll see a lot. We'll see more generative AI. We'll see more content. We'll see, a lot of the things I talked about. But sure, I'm willing to be surprised that a brand new technology or a brand new service will emerge in the next 5 years. But I think that maybe in 5 years' time, Spotify will still be the biggest platform in the UK, and so we'll see.
Well, I would say 5 years later, the music tech will be a lot more different from this. So why I would like to say this is I really like experience the change from the first year of ChatGPT, and now like how creative and how capable the large language model can do. And so given the power of all the creative machine learning models like reinforcement learning and all the stuffs. And I truly believe that we will see more new stuffs coming in all industries, including music tech. And I can't think of something now, but I believe there will be more interesting stuff
things.
that waiting for them.
I love it. I love them all. And I gonna say I gonna save this cut and in my computer. 5 years later, I will go talk with you guys again, and maybe we can have another episode. So, do you have
Yeah, we should have a
15
champagne.
years, Hazel? I don't know. 15 years is for sure.
Honestly, I'm not thinking that far ahead. I would have to give it some more thought. I think, to be perfectly honest, sometimes think investors have a crystal ball, and we really don't. It's just interpretation of the data as it appears. So yeah, I don't have any secrets that I'm not sharing.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's not only for music tech, it's about everybody who live in this era and what's people's feeling and observation. Very, very good. And such a pleasure to talk with you guys. So thank you. Thank you for your time. And let's see about the future.